Hello, everyone. Welcome to Steve Rosenfield's stand-up comedy workshop show, the online edition. What you are going to see tonight is a company. I was on mute. I'm sorry. Zoom. Welcome to Steve Rosenfield's stand-up comedy workshop show. Hi, what you're going to see tonight is a company of awesome comedians that have trained together in a workshop conducted by the award-winning comedy director, the founder of the American Comedy Institute, and the author of the book Mastering Stand-Up, Steve Rosenfield. Some of the alumni from this work program have gone on to perform on The Tonight Show, The Late Show, Saturday Night Live, Conan O'Brien, Gotham Comedy Live, and they perform in the greatest clubs all over the world. And one of the greatest clubs in the world right now is your living room. Congratulations. There's still a 2-drink minimum. We're so excited for this show. We have some awesome comedians who and two of which are actually making stand-up comedy debuts for you tonight online. Their comedy debuts. My name is Michaela. I'm going to be your host, and I'm very excited about the comics that we have tonight. I know you're going to love it, so hang tight and we'll have a fantastic show. What I love about Zoom especially is that you cannot see how short that I am. My license says 4'11". My measuring tape says 4'8". I'm 4'8" tall. I'm so small. It's very depressing, but I am kind of okay with it though, because I do think I have a convenient body. Like my ex, the first time they saw me naked, said they were shocked at how close together everything was. And I think I'm going to take that as a compliment. Like when I die, I'm donating my body not to science, but to engineering. I do believe I'm a new type of simple machine. I must be. I have very quick reflexes, and I can get drunk from the thought. So it's not so bad. It's not terrible. I think I'm like a human iPod shuffle. I got all the same functions. It's just if you give me one margarita, I play only Jimmy Buffett over and over again. That's what it's like. I'm so glad to be in this city. Yes, I am in New York City because I spent 6 months in Florida and it was terrifying. Oh my gosh. But I was not alone because I was there with my quarantine buddies. Ladies and gentlemen, they have been married for 27 beautiful years. They have seen all 8 seasons of Dexter thrice, and they still do not believe in global warming. It was Mike and Tina Fagan, just the greatest quarantine buddies, best parents ever. They live in a 55 and over community. So I lived in a 55 and over community for 6 months, and I could not sleep at night because I knew I was the only fertile woman in at least a mile. And if this became a situation where we had to repopulate the earth, there was going to be a line of old men knocking down my door. So I had to establish the parameters of the competition that would ensue. Step one, active driver's license would be required to enter. Active. I don't like to drive. I need an active driver's license. Two, there would be a jitterbug competition just to determine their style, their flair, and endurance. And third, and finally, bocce ball tournament to the death, like bocce ball Squid Games, and whoever wins would get a socially distanced Boston Market early bird special dinner with me. And that's as far as I would go. I think that's as far as it'd go. Back in college, I was actually a lesbian for a while, and I still am because I'm not a quitter. It's hard, but I'm not giving up. I think it's worth it. I am not the only queer person in my family, though. I have my Aunt Loretta. She's fantastic. Great wife. They have this crew of friends that I believe they are the keystone of the North New Jersey lesbian community. Without them, the whole thing would fall apart. I'm pretty confident. They give fantastic advice, all of them. It's just, I feel like their advice is a little outdated. Like they came out around the 80s. And so I'll come to them now like, hey, how do I let this girl know that I'm interested in her? And they're like, whoa, okay, here's what you're going to do. Step number one, listen to me. Step number one, marry a man, wait 10 to 12 years. Wait a decade. Just be with that guy. I'm like, no. I don't think you understand. It's not what I want to do. They're like, no, you're playing the long game. Okay. Then at your weekly all girls poker game, go on up to your friend Debbie, give her a passionate but clumsy kiss on the side of the cheek. Wait 10 to 12 more years. Okay. It never happened. Never happened. Deny it. Then, at your goddaughter's communion, don't worry, Debbie's going to be invited. She is like family. Give her a kiss full on the mouth. Tell her you'd die for her and live happily ever after in secrecy. Tell absolutely no one. Tell no one ever. Does that help? I'm like, no, but it explains a lot about my childhood and how I never knew. I never knew about you guys. I see how that works now. Thank you all so much. My name is Michaela. I will be with you all throughout the evening, but let's get to the comedians tonight. I am so excited about your first comic. She made her stand-up comedy debut just a few days ago. And now for an online stand-up comedy debut, all the way from the Upper West Side in Manhattan. I could wave to her if I wanted to. This is Deborah Tammer.
So I got the COVID vaccines, woohoo! And then I got COVID. And I was really surprised about how my 3 daughters reacted. They didn't give a shit. In fact, when I told my 14-year-old, she said, "You got COVID. So who's going to make me lunch?" So as you can probably tell, I'm from England. Surprise. But I love living in New York. I mean, you've got things here which we just don't have back home. For example, the other day, I was trying on a dress, and when I came out of the dressing room, another customer came up to me and said, "It doesn't suit you." We don't have that in England. So we moved because of my husband's job. He works for NBC Universal and was put in charge of their new streaming service. And because we don't know everything about American culture, he came home and he was a bit concerned. He said, "Debs, I'm a bit worried about the name they're going with. They want to call it Peacock." And I'm like, hang on, you can't call it Peacock. It sounds like a porn site for people with small bladders. So my mum still lives in England, which means we've got a very strong texting relationship. But she hasn't quite got the hang of it yet. You know, the whole brevity thing seems to be eluding her. For example, I text, "No reason for alarm, but Alice," that's my youngest, "fell and broke her wrist. She's fine and on the mend." She replies, "I'm so grateful for your advice not to be alarmed. When it comes to the health and well-being of Alice, even the slightest setback would be alarming to me. And it's not just Alice I worry about. I harbour anxiety about all my grandchildren. How did Alice fall and break her wrist? Was it ice skating? Surely it's too warm to ice skate in New York at the moment. This news has reminded me of when Ruby fell off her pogo stick. I told your father at the time that the pogo stick was a bad idea. You know, Auntie Mavis used to be a radiologist and was wondering which bone Alice broke. Was it the scaphoid or was it the distal radius? I only ask because Mavis says that if it is in fact the scaphoid, then it takes significantly longer to heal. I'm not surprised that Alice is fine. From the moment she was born, I felt that she was an excessively positive child. So glad she's on the road to recovery. Sending love." I reply, "Thanks. I mean, I've got the latest iPhone and I'm not sure I've got the megabytes to continue this relationship." Now, I love the theatre. So I thought it'd be a good idea to take my 3 girls to see the musical Six. For those of you who don't know the plot, it's about the 6 wives of Henry VIII. So I thought, oh, this will be educational. Probably should have checked whether it was age appropriate, because when Anne Boleyn came on stage, she sang, "I lost my head, but I gave good head." My Alice looks at me and says, "Mummy, what does that mean?" And I'm like, it's an old-fashioned way of giving a kiss." Thought I was in the clear then. Next day, in school, in the playground, full view of everyone, she says, "Bye, Mummy. I love you." Thanks for listening. You've been great.
Deborah Tammer. Deborah, oh, that was well good, isn't it? That was well good. I got a thumbs up. Nice. Oh, well, your mom sounds like she could be on Downton Abbey. I've never heard a text that should have a wax seal, but now I have. Beautifully done. Oh, your next performer, also from New York, but this time up in Massapequa. He also made a stand-up comedy debut the other night, now on the internet, doing it again. Let's hear it for Richard Severin.
Thank you, thank you. As you must know, I have been a teacher here in New York for 25 years. That's right. For the last 25 years, I've worked for the New York City Department of Miseducation. Naturally, the area of study that I misinform my students about is of American history. I misinform them exactly the way the Department of Miseducation misled me to misinform them. I teach them what's in the textbook. In other words, I teach bullshit. You know, in all good consciousness, I must say, I have contributed to the distortion, retardation of the mind of many young people. I teach them what they taught me to teach about Clinton. You know, President Slick Willie, friend of the working man, and Jeffrey Epstein. I teach that he balanced the budget. What I leave out is because of blowjob getter, my college tuition went up 5 times. I also teach them about President George W. Bush, President Dyslexia. W. Bush, Mr. Nuclear himself. I teach them he led this country after we were attacked on 9/11. What I don't teach them is where he led the country. You know, into war with the wrong nation. We saw how this shit turned out. I must tell you also, you know, if I was responsible for the death of 1/1000th of the people he is responsible for killing, I would be coming to you from Leavenworth in the isolation cell. Can you imagine if that guy was a doctor instead of a politician? He'd be like, oh, I see what's causing the pain in your foot. You've got an ingrown toenail. That's okay. I'll take care of it. It's not serious. All I have to do is to amputate your arm. I teach them about President Obama. With President Long Ears, everything for African American went way up. Our unemployment went way up. The number of young children graduating high school and still unable to read went way up. The number of hate crime against African American went way up. With all this, oh, sorry, I almost forgot. How can I possibly forget about Agent Orange? President Trump. I teach my students he is an inspiration because he is living proof that anyone, any low-life, depraved, misogynist, perverted, grabbing them by the pussy, asshole, lying sack of shit can become president of the United States. I guess Obama was right. Yes, we can. You know, I don't agree with people who say he's a moron. I don't think a moron can get impeached twice. And now he's the front runner for his party's nomination. He is not a moron. He's a Republican. As you know, the history textbook teaches us about a lot of dead presidents too. Among the great president that we have, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote our Declaration of Independence and state, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, except for the one that I own and I'm fucking. And of course, I teach about perhaps one of our greatest presidents, President Lincoln. The one that this country thinks so highly of, they put him on the penny. The only brown currency too. I teach about the great emancipator who said to the African-American slaves, now you are free. What I don't teach is the rest of that sentence. Now you are free to get out of this country and go back to Africa where you belong. So when you decide to have your class action lawsuit against the Department of Miseducation, don't forget to include me. You've been a nice audience. Thank you and good night.
Professor Richard Severin. Richard, I'd love to get your opinions on Herbert Hoover one time. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on Mr. Hoover.
I mean, you mean Mr. Hookerville?
Okay, that helped. I know. Everyone on dating apps now, when they want to give I guess now you can know I'm on the dating apps. When you ask for like an unpopular opinion, everyone says Herbert Hoover's the best president. And I'm like, what? I swear. Anyway, great set, Richard. Thanks for being on the show. I'm so excited about your next performer. She is coming all the way from San Diego, California, and she's very funny. You're going to love her. Give it up for Marcia. Ooh. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to come back on actually, because Marcia's internet is not working. So I'll give the next performer a few seconds, and I'm going to take this opportunity to say that our workshops are entirely online right now. So, oh, she's back. Okay, let's try this now. I will tell you more about the workshops after Marcia, but I'm very excited to bring her to the screen. She is, again, all the way from San Diego, California. Give it up for Marcia. Oh, I think that she went out again. Oh, she's right there. Cool.
People question the existence of God, and I don't get it. How
Okay, we're gonna try and get Marcia.
But I was playing ball with Jesus Christ, and
okay, I'm gonna put Marcia a little bit later in the show when we figure out her internet, but I am going to tell you a little bit about the workshop, just that our next workshop is starting November 9th online. And even though the classes are gonna be online, we have performances back in person at Gotham Comedy Club. So if you're in the New York area and wanna take the workshop, you can perform at Gotham. And if you're not in the New York area, you can perform online from anywhere that you are at. So our next workshop is November 9th. And you can learn about it more by going to comedyinstitute.com. Your next performer coming to the screen, she is all the way from the San Francisco Bay Area. She is a writer and an actress, and she teaches piano to adult learners. Please give it up for the wonderful Jane Stone.
Good evening. Come on in. Take off your mask, hang it up, and stay a while. Wearing a mask all the time is really difficult and burdensome for somebody like me who cries all the time. Stress from COVID has really brought me down. I bought a new phone, and it took forever just to get my voicemail greeting sounding reasonably cheerful. My first try was, "Hello, I'm so happy you called. After the tone, state your bad news, and I'll call you back if I'm still alive." After 30 tries, finally, I think I sounded cheerful. It was, "Hello, I am thrilled you've called. After the tone, list 3 things you're grateful for, and I'll call you back with a song in my heart." On a different note, my doctor told me to take walks to strengthen my bones. So I took a walk for my bones, and I fractured my wrist. The price for my visit to the emergency department was $47,000. How dare they charge that much when they didn't even have an open bar? The surgery was a week later, and the doctor was very reassuring. He said, "Well, you won't be able to use your right hand for 3 months, but you should be able to do almost everything." So I asked, "Does that mean I'll be able to take care of myself?" And he says, "Nope." When the cast had been on my arm for 4 or 5 weeks, I complained to the doctor. I said, "It's starting to smell like dead squirrels." So he says, "Then don't smell it." Do you know how hard it is to keep your nose away from your wrist? Well, the home health agency sent me the shower lady to help me shower once a week. She shows up at my door wearing a shower cap, goggles, an N95 mask, rubber gloves up to her elbows, a full-length rubber apron, and rubber boots. When I first saw her, I thought she was the pizza delivery guy. Then I remembered it was 7 a.m. I never have pizza before 9. Well, so the shower lady undresses me, and I climb into the shower stall, and she lathers me up and hoses me down. I mean, it was insane. That was all the action I was getting, and it was just once a week. Well, I've been concerned that my favorite restaurant, the Blue Pigeon, might not survive the pandemic. I went there, and I think the way they did it was they totally switched things up. They changed the name from the Blue Pigeon to Le Squab Bleu and doubled the prices. That's it. Same Chinese menu. In the old days, the maitre d' Rodrigo used to greet me at the front door with a gracious, "Ah, you're here by yourself, alone, again." Then he'd show me to the special table for one, nestled between the kitchen door and the men's room. Now, you have to prove you're vaccinated and then prove you're you. Well, who else would I be? If I were anyone else, would I be eating Chinese food at a place called Le Squab Bleu? And the dining is all outdoors now, so I have to sit under a very intense heat lamp. Now I know how a French fry feels at McDonald's. And the other night, my hat melted. I'm a little paranoid, so to make sure that I'm not sitting downwind of anyone, I make the cloth napkin into a windsock. I used to think that bleu was the French word for blue, but it turns out it's how you feel after you eat at Le Square Bleu. You know, I've noticed you are the best audience. Thank you for visiting, and take good care of each other, sweethearts.
Jane Stone, Jane. Yes, you've perfectly summarized bleu, a combination of blue and blah. Bleu. Well, I think you're a wonderful French fry, the crispiest French fry in the box. We're going to try going back to Marzia now, all the way from San Diego, California. Let's see. Let's hear it for Marzia.
Hi, everyone. So people question the existence of God, and I can't understand why, because who else is putting my photos on iCloud? As a kid, I would fall asleep imagining playing ball with Jesus Christ, and he'd be out there in those long robes and those thick, heavy sleeves, and he could still throw a wicked fastball. Talk about miracles. And sometimes I have to say, Jesus Christ, he's up. I'm a 10-year-old girl. But he wouldn't. It was like every time he threw a ball, he had to prove that he could throw a ball faster than me. And I get it. I understood you can't become the King of Kings or the Lord of Lords unless you're damn competitive. The worst thing was when every time he hit a single, he would stretch it into a double. I mean, okay, you stretched 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish to feed a multitude, but come on. That was a blooper ball. It just went into left field. But he'd round first and slide into second. And he would slide into me feet first with those sandals on. And I would be like, you're out, but I forgive you. Now that I'm getting older, I have to face the fact that I'm dealing with something really dark and looming. I know where it is. It's right there. It's in my teeth. I don't think you see it. It's like my gums have had it. They're like, we're moving out of this gob from hell. I mean, if this keeps up, I'm going to have to start brushing my teeth. I mean, don't get me wrong. Of course I brush my teeth. I brush my teeth every time I think of it. The thing is, I grew up in an Italian family that believed that if something was wrong, you just eat what's growing on the side of the road. It's like, we would be driving with my mother and she would be like, feeling nauseous. There's asparagus, stop the car. You didn't need a doctor for your health, you needed a garden. And so I was taught at a minimum 2 or 3 times a week to maintain your dental hygiene, you had to eat broccoli raw. And it takes a long time to eat broccoli raw. I've got a young daughter, a full-time job. I mean, come on. So in my Italian family, you were expected to eat, and as an adult, I couldn't kick the habit. So I made some big adjustments to my diet. It's not sausages and pasta anymore. No, I stuff myself with bananas, with mangoes, avocados, figs. So if it's really true, you are what you eat, I'm the rainforest. So my parents really expected and demanded that I get straight A's, and I couldn't understand why. Because clearly they were raising me to be a cleaning lady. I mean, I did all the cleaning growing up. And why does the future cleaning lady need an A in trigonometry? But they expected the same of my 2 brothers, which, given their expectations of them, was also, it just made no sense because they were clearly being raised to do nothing. I mean, you don't need to ace English literature to be able to say, hey, Mars, go get me another cannoli while I'm scrubbing the kitchen floor. And they're just sitting on the sofa. So I run a preschool out of my home in San Diego. And because it virtually never rains, my school is outside in the backyard. But I realized with all this weird weather going on, I'm going to have to make some adjustments. So I thought of some. because it's going to rain probably and we'll have to move inside. And so I thought, instead of playing tag, we could play laundry. After nap time, I could just simply say, okay, kids, it's sorting time. So I have this one mother who doesn't think that I'm doing a good job teaching her daughter to control her temper. She came to pick her up the other day and her kid was screaming at another kid. And she was like, you should teach her not to do that. And I said, are you kidding? Come on. That kid just ran her new car into the sandbox. Now it's all dented and it's scratched and full of sand. I mean, come on. No wonder she's so mad. Oh, gee, I just gotta go. I just remembered I left broccoli rabe on the stove. You've been great. Thank you so much. Bye.
Marcia, I love broccoli rabe. That brought up some memories for me too. And whoever can fold the fitted sheet in laundry deserves a gold star. And I think you agree. That kid's getting the gold star. Your next comic coming to the screen is performing all the way from Chicago, Illinois. So excited to have him on the show. Let's hear it for Jimmy Carrane.
When my daughter was born, my friends who were dads, they all told me that having a kid was going to be like this emotional, euphoric experience. A lot like that drug ecstasy. That the college kids are on. And they fall in love with everything, and then they end up trying to fuck an empty pizza box. And the real tragedy to that is a lot of times when they're done, they find there's a couple slices still left in there. So I knew I wasn't going to have a positive experience like my friends, because my wife Lauren, she got up at 2:30 in the morning and her water broke, and she went right into labor, and her contractions started, and she was in a lot of pain. And she was screaming at me. She was yelling at me. She was like, time my contractions. And we had gone over this, in couples therapy. I don't like to be yelled at, And I didn't say anything, but I was going to bring it up in our next session. So by the time we got to the hospital, I was in a bad mood. And they took us in and they put us in into our room. And then, she was in a lot of agony the whole morning. And a couple hours later, she was, she couldn't take it anymore. So they gave her pain medication, an epidural. And I asked for one too, because I'd been on my feet for 8 hours straight. Well, the epidural worked, and she was more comfortable. But because of it, the baby's heart rate dropped. And so she was, the doctor came in and said that we needed to have an emergency C-section because my daughter and my wife were in danger. And that's a major operation. I mean, it takes a long time to recover, and Lauren wouldn't be able to go up and down stairs, and I'd have to do all the laundry. And I started to cry, not because of the laundry, because, they could die and I would be, single. And, the thought of dating, at my age, I wasn't into it. So, we're in the delivery room, and Lauren's passed out on a gurney, so there's no one there to process my feelings with. And they put up this big blue curtain, so I can't see how bloody the surgery is. And about 35 minutes later, I hear someone's baby crying. And, I assume it's ours, but I don't know. I mean, how do I know they're not going to give us, our baby and not one that's just laying on the floor somewhere? So, a couple minutes later, I hear the nurse comes out, and she's holding our baby, and I gotta tell you, it was the scariest little fucking thing I've ever seen. It had a dent in its head, and it was all jaundice, and they say newborn, but it really looks used, and they're so unhealthy looking. They really should just put a cigarette in their mouth and drive them to a casino and let them play nickel slots. So they cut off the nurse cut the umbilical cord off, and then she wrapped her up in a little towel or a blanket, And she goes, "Do you want to hold it?" And I said, "No, this isn't a good time because I'm trying to figure out how I can, return it." And then she said to me, "Come on, don't you want to hold your granddaughter?" And I'm like, "Wait, you think I'm the grandfather?" And look, I'm 52 when I had her. I knew that this kind of comments were coming. I just didn't think it was going to come in the delivery room. So she says, "Give me your phone. I want to take a picture of you." And so I give her the phone, and she gives me the baby. And then she's like, "Smile." And I'm not the type of person who can fake a smile. I need something to feel happy about. So I think about the last time I was happy, and I come up blank. And the closest thing I can come up with is in the hospital cafeteria, they have like this great sugar-free pudding parfait that, I mean, it's not only delicious, but it's only $1. So she's like smiling. I'm like, "Yum." And she takes the picture, and then she takes the baby out of my arms, and she puts on the baby's ankle this little plastic monitor. And I'm like, "Well, what's that for? And is my daughter under house arrest?" And she said, "No, they have it for security reasons. So when we take her to the nursery, no one takes her." And it was at that moment that I'm like, "Oh my God, this thing's valuable, and I need to protect it. I can't let it out of my sight. I don't want anybody to steal it, And so I say to them, "Look, I'm going upstairs with my daughter because I am not her grandfather. I am the father." And I got to tell you, like at that moment, I felt that euphoric feeling that my friends were talking about, and it felt great. But still, it didn't make up for the rest of the day. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience, everybody, and stay safe.
Jimmy Carrane. Thank you all so much for watching tonight. Thanks to all the comedians for performing from all across the country and from other realms. We appreciate you watching. If you want any information about our workshops, go to www.comedyinstitute.com. Our workshops are online. Our performances are in person and online. And we hope to see you at one soon. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Have a great rest of your weekend. Bye, everyone.